So, the Royal Navy played a central role in winning wars and in creating empires. But how did it work? And what made it so special? First of all, meritocracy. You could not buy a naval commission, as for example you could in France, and indeed as you could in the British Army. The game afoot was deemed too serious. So future officers began as ship's boys, usually going to sea by the time they were 10 or 11 years old. This was their apprenticeship. They were serving admirals who could talk of battle experience when they were 12. All had to study seacraft, pass exams, and start their progression to seniority as a midshipman. This is an image of Nelson when he was 18 years old. In fact, a lieutenant. But he's in the uniform, I'm going to confuse you all today, of a captain. Rigaud, the artist, began the work in 1777, but Nelson, away at sea, did not see the portrait until 1781, and he asked the artist to add beauty, hence the new uniform. And none could achieve ultimate seniority beyond midshipman without experience of successful leadership. Once they did, they were made for life, and they wore the uniform to look the part. Admiral of the Fleet, Lord Nelson of the Blue. And then secondly, there was the presence of a career structure and of a financial security. Buying an army commission was expensive. Commanding and managing a regiment, even more so. But naval officers could at least get by on their pay, and then much more. A successful stint in the Navy and you were making money, and that included ordinary seamen. Both the Battle of the Nile and Trafalgar, two of Nelson's greatest victories and meriting a talk on their own, netted participating ordinary seamen the equivalent of a year's salary. And thirdly, the Royal Navy was a special type of self-regarding club, or like a mafia family. There are 8 estuaries, each dominated by and supporting the great towns of 18th century Britain, from Newcastle in the northeast on the River Tyne, down to Hull, London, Southampton, Portsmouth and Bristol in the south, before going up the west coast to Liverpool on the Mersey and then Glasgow and the Clyde. And it was from these cities that most sailors came. Fathers won a place for their sons on board a vessel because they were already part of this world. You lived by the sea. You knew the people. They knew you. You were a chandler, a ship's carpenter, a friend of the captain. Your son already had sea blood in his veins. He knew the ropes, itself a naval expression. He was one of us. These were not children abused by the system, but boys with an opportunity to carve out a career. Let me give you an image that encapsulates this society and the pride that a captain would have in his team. Wealthy captains would take a great interest in the fitting out of their ships. Hence the extraordinary collection of the 18th century ships models of the Royal Maritime Museum at Greenwich in London. These are not models for fun. These are the working designs for use by the Admiralty and by the captain in fit-out discussions with the ship's architect and builder. The vessel was both a symbol of the captain's success and the center of his working life. And more often than not, the captain would go on to commission a painting of the ship, his pride and joy. There are many such paintings in Greenwich. But the point is, these are not casual paintings. This is a Cleveley, painted for the captain to hang in his dining room at home to show off in all its glory. This is the 18th century equivalent of a Manhattan penthouse. Trafalgar and Nelson ensured that Britain ruled the waves by the start of the 19th century. was the heartbeat of the disruptive and global force that became the Industrial Revolution. Whatever you may have thought till now, whatever you were taught at school, this was no amateur or philanthropic time of voyages and discovery. This was the zenith of war economics and war commerce, and Britain was in the military and financial driving seat. Let me digress slightly to make the point and fix it in your mind. Here's a painting from the period, charming. A bunch of English friends in what is known as a conversation piece, unsigned until recently thought to be by a society painter, Zoffany. It is hung unremarked in a private collection, probably worth $1 million at auction. Zoffany is, after all, an extremely famous society painter. But this is no society painting. It hangs together today in pride of place in the entrance hall of the National Library of Australia. It is priceless. This is the first known painting of Captain Cooke, painted by John Mortimer. It tells the story of the British Empire's expansion into the Pacific, and in a sense, it summarizes our tale so far today. At the center is Captain Cooke, then a lieutenant, pointing symbolically at the ocean he's about to explore. Seated to the left is Sir Joseph Banks, the fabulously wealthy landowner who will finance much of the scientific and botanical costs of the Endeavour voyage. Dr. Solander, standing behind Banks, an apostle of the legendary Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus, would be the leader of the 8 scientists hired for the exploration. But who is Cooke looking at? To whom is he and the focus of the painting deferring? Who is the elegant man in grey on the right? He is none other than the Earl of Sandwich, First Lord of the Admiralty, the head of the British Navy, and the scion of the Montagu banking family. Never mind botany, never mind tracking the stars. Cooke's secret instructions were to find New Holland, as it was then called, and to position Australia, as it would become, as part of the British Empire. This was no merchant effort. The boat was HMS Endeavour, HMS, or His Majesty's warship. And the impulse behind the voyage was overwhelmingly that of building British power. This was a militarily funded land grab. Cooke was a naval captain. The Navy was a full-on part of the effort. Whatever changes started in Britain at this time, they would be taking place against a backcloth of naval dominance, the pursuit of empire, and with a focus firmly fixed on finance and trade.